So when you're thinking about what the impact will be when you're going through a divorce, especially now, more important than ever, part of that work, part of that settlement, negotiation or review is thinking about, well, if I take this, what's the best case scenario here? What's the impact that it'll have on my financial life today? Because I think what sometimes not everyone loses sight of when they're going through a divorce is the long-term impact.
Welcome to the Divorce Survival Guide podcast, where we have open and honest conversations about co-parenting, separation, divorce, and the hardest question of all, should you stay or should you go? I'm Kate Anthony, your divorce survival guide, and I'm here to help you navigate some of the roughest waters you've ever swum in and answer some of your toughest questions. I've been to hell and back, and now it's my mission in life to help you get to the other side of this process with your sanity and your heart intact.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I have with me Nikki Tucker. She is back. You guys loved her last time she was on, so I'm really excited to have her back. We're arming you with strategies to fight back during divorce negotiations, to really get clear about what are the facts, right? Sometimes we just want to give in and be like, it doesn't matter. I just want this to be done. And that urge can cost you so much more than you realize in the long run. So Nikki talks us through how to actually run the numbers, run all these numbers, know what the math is. It's a great, exciting episode. And just a couple of updates around here. You know, we could squeeze one or two more into the Unbreakable retreat. Registration isn't officially closed, but it's kind of, we're kind of getting up to the end of the line here. We could squeeze one or two more in. We've got a good number right now, but if you were like, oh shit, I really want to go on this retreat. Okay, let me know. It's on my website, kateanthony.com/unbreakable. As always, Phoenix Rising is running. It continues to run. Our calls are so impactful. And, I learn stuff from each of the women in the group when they bring something new to the table that I haven't dealt with before, and maybe somebody else has actually dealt with it. I learn from the group, but for the most part, this is an incredible group of women who are just really, really doing the actual work of navigating their divorces with incredible grace and integrity, just as beautiful spirits, the beautiful spirits that they are. So if you're interested in that kind of energy in your divorce, Phoenix Rising is absolutely for you. It is ongoing enrollment, so you can join at any time. There's a 3-month minimum commitment, and then you go month to month as you want. We ask for a 3-month commitment because we want people to really get the full experience and benefit before deciding if they're going to continue on. So it's like you're not going to get anything out of it in a month. I mean, you will, but not as much as I want you to. So anyway, you can read about that on my website too. That's all for the housekeeping that I have for you. Let's get into my conversation with Nikki Tucker. Nikki, thank you so much for coming back on the show. I'm so happy to talk to you again.
Well, thanks for having me back. It is great to have another robust conversation.
Yeah. You said that in your practice, people are really coming up against some unreasonable asks. And so you've been helping your clients with negotiating around these unreasonable asks. And I'm wondering if you could elaborate maybe on what some of those are and how you're helping people how you're advising them to negotiate these things.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because usually the clients, the types of clients that I deal with, they're obviously regular people. Let's start there. But and when I say regular, I mean sane on both sides.
Not like they're not Martians.
They're not
like,
Martians. Yeah,
right.
exactly.
They are sane, reasonable.
Reasonable people.
Right. Yes. Right.
Yes. And then I don't know if it was a realignment of the stars or, Mercury was in retrograde or whatever it was. But there's been this theme with a few clients that have, and my clients are women typically, a few clients that have had some unreasonable ask from their spouses. And so part of it, and it's not even geographic specific. So I have a couple of clients in Canada and then also clients in the US too.
Okay.
So that's
okay.
not the trigger.
Okay.
Asking for things that either don't align with what they're entitled to based on the jurisdiction that they live in, so state, province, etc.
Okay.
And then not even willing to learn or understand. So the general example that I'll give you, and then I'll give you some specifics, is if you're entitled to splitting the house, the marital property, you split the equity in the home, it's black and white.
It's pretty clear.
It's
right.
pretty clear.
Yes.
It's one of the more basic elements of divorce, where you probably have less complication than other assets. But it's been a couple of instances where they want the house, they want the equity, all of it. And the fact that I've seen it with a couple of different clients, it's just like, what's going on with this question?
Who in the manosphere is telling them? Because that's where we have to look, right? I'm like, there is somebody out there advising these dudes about how to get everything in your divorce.
Yes.
You know?
And advising them incorrectly, maybe?
Incorrect. And right, exactly. They're like, oh man, shoot for the stars. Right.
Yeah. This time I don't think you're gonna land on the moon, but okay.
Right. Yeah.
So then the other thing that I'm seeing is, especially those who have younger kids, the angle is to ask for more parenting time. So the husband is asking for more parenting time. Not a 50-50 situation, but is something so unreasonable with the angle to just pay less in child support. So it's not that they want to necessarily be closer to the kids and all of that, all of the things that maybe you could understand. It's just motivated by finances.
Sure.
And
I see that a lot, especially with men who, like, they work full time. They don't get home before 7:00. They literally cannot parent the amount that they're asking for.
Literally cannot. Literally cannot. Yeah. And then I think the third thing, and this ties back to our previous conversation with high earners and the amount that the spouses are asking for in spousal support. And I'm seeing a more consistent theme with this idea that the system is built against men and is only in favor of women. Sure. And it's time that they right this wrong, apparently, this not accurate situation,
this
but
huge injustice that's been done unto men.
Yes.
I know. Yes. It's so hard for them living in a society that's so stacked against them. Again, there are, so many people, divorce quote influencers on the internet that are spewing this shit.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that studies have been done to show that the opposite is true, very intense, legal studies done. Okay, so these are sort of the topics. Are there more, or those?
No, those are the top three that I've been seeing.
I see those all the time as well. So, what do you advise women? How do you advise them to, to me, it's one of those things where it's like, you don't argue with a premise that is faulty, right? It's like, it is a negotiation tactic where you're going to ask for everything. You're going to ask for too much because right? Once we negotiate, it's going to feel like a compromise, but actually you're getting more because you came down a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying this well, but
No, I know exactly what you're saying. So the guidance that I provide is one, let's eliminate the non-starters. So
right.
these situations or settlement agreements where you are giving up way too much because that'll help you get to the end faster is
Mm-mm,
not the way
mm-mm.
to go here.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
so we're being very vocal about this is a non-starter, so not even on the table, and we're not spending any time on it. And
Uh-huh.
if that means, and these are often cases where they're trying to settle out of court anyway. So if
Mm-hmm,
that
mm-hmm.
means
Right.
that we can't continue these conversations out of court, then let's just go ahead and expedite this because otherwise you're still wasting time and money arguing about ridiculous things.
Absolutely.
So I think that's the first piece. And then the second main thing, because it just depends on the circumstances, especially when you're talking about the cases where they have minor kids,
Yeah.
is to be very open and flexible. So usually clients are walking in with an idea about how things should go or what they're entitled to or what the settlement might look like. And most of them have never been divorced. So it's based on conversation with family and friends, the stuff they've seen on TV, or, maybe even they've listened to podcasts, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. However, it's like the world is kind of your oyster when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to the negotiation strategy. And so being more open to different options, especially when we're talking about things like spousal support, for example, there are a lot of different ways to get to the same number. And I
Mm.
think sometimes people are very caught up on, okay, this is the monthly amount that I have to pay and I can't afford that and there's no room for negotiation. No, you could have the low, the mid, the high. You could
Mm-hmm.
have portions that are paid periodically on a monthly basis. Maybe something's paid quarterly. Maybe there's something else that's paid annually. And it could be the combination of the three. And so
Mm.
for Canadian clients in particular, they still have the benefit of spousal support being tax deductible and all of that. You don't necessarily have that in the US, but it still doesn't limit you with being creative. So
Mm-hmm.
those are the main things that I want people to understand is it doesn't necessarily just have to be something in the box. We can play outside of the box here.
Right. And I like the idea that like we're not the first thing you said was right that like let's just get the non-starters off the table, right? Because like I said, we're not negotiating from a faulty premise, right? We're not going to have a spirited debate about something that is not based in reality,
Yeah, like the sky
right?
is blue.
The
That's
sky is blue just because you said it's green. So, for example, I'm going to go there, but
yep,
for
go there.
example, Musk's Nazi salute, right? The media picks it up and they're like, well, let's talk about, he does have autism and, maybe he's this and we don't know what he meant. And right, we don't know his intentions. Like that was a fucking Nazi. We're not having an argument or a like if we're arguing that point, we're arguing a faulty premise. We're not doing that in divorce.
1,000% agree with you. And I think it's difficult for some people to get that because they're entering the situation ready to fight. It's already adversarial.
That's right.
So they
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
feel like you have to combat and rebut everything. And you
Right.
don't. You
You
don't.
don't. You don't. And that's the thing too, is like the laws are fairly clear, right? I mean, you would think divorce would be fairly clear cut. Like the laws are the laws and they're pretty clear. Somehow we end up spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars in litigation over fairly clear cut laws. And I will hazard to guess that most people end up at the end of that with the exact settlement that they probably would have had hundreds of thousands of dollars ago, except their kids can actually go to college or can't go to college now, right? Because yes, of course, there's nuance and there's all sorts of stuff, but keeping the house and the equity Like, okay, are you giving up your 401k? You're giving up access to my 401k. You're giving up access to spousal support. You're giving up access to child support. Like maybe that would balance the scales, but this is still going to be a distribution.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why it's likely a non-starter if all of those things are not happening. And
Right.
everyone's situation is a little bit different. So I
Mhm.
don't want the audience to be listening to this and say, well, I know about this one circumstance. We're not
Oh,
talking about,
always.
yeah,
There's
we're not
always one.
talking about the exceptions here. We're talking
Right.
about general rule and the
Hmm.
approach to the process and thinking about your strategy. And so again, it could be a seasonal thing for me because
Mm-mm.
it's I don't want this to be the norm. Okay. I have been very lucky. Like I said, I've had some reasonable clients and it's been fantastic. And
Sure.
yeah, let's get back to
Yeah.
that. And I appreciate it though. Obviously, I'm familiar with it and luckily I know how to handle it, but I can appreciate it because it does open your eyes, like I said, to all the possibilities. Like, all right, let's dig in deeper into this one. So
Right.
sometimes it's
Yes.
fun, but temper the fun.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Okay. So when you have like these unreasonable requests, like the first thing, of course, like, and this is what I will tell my clients. I'm like, that's not a thing. That's like literally not a thing. And eventually you would hope that their attorneys are also going to tell them, like, that's not a thing. Like, we're not doing that, right? You really would hope that the opposing counsel would be able to say something like that. But very often, the people who are divorcing people like this, these personalities, have been so beaten down by them for so many years that the idea of saying no can be really difficult. The idea of saying, like, that's a non-starter, that is completely foreign to
Yeah,
them.
for sure.
Do you help them with girding their loins, so to speak, or sort of having some strength to be able to say no to someone that they've rarely had the opportunity to say no to?
Yeah, and I think that the best way that I do this with clients is by talking about the reality of the situation
Mm-hmm.
and speaking about the future. So what you just described, those feelings, that behavior, it's often rooted in fear, connected to
Mm-hmm.
fear, whether you fear the reaction of the person, the things they'll say, the things they'll do. You're just trying to mitigate whatever's coming by just saying
Mm-hmm.
yes and giving it.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe that worked or didn't work for you in your marriage, but in your divorce, the impact is different because at a certain point, you won't have to deal with this person on a regular basis, particularly if you don't have children. So
Wow.
you saying yes to something that is not in your best interest could have absolute detrimental effect and impact on your life and your lifestyle. And I think sometimes because there's this willingness or desire to just say, okay, whatever you want, fine, just shut up, leave me alone.
Right. I just want to be done.
Yeah, I want this to be over. I have to remind them, particularly from a quantitative perspective, to say, well, if you say yes, this is what it looks like. Here's the math behind the yes. And
Yes.
if you say no, this is what it looks like. And here's the math behind the no. Now, if there are no consequences, if you don't have to worry about anything as far as how they respond and what they do, which one would you pick? More than likely, it's the
It's the
no.
no.
It's the
Right.
no.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think seeing the numbers and seeing like real life examples and illustrations helps to bring confidence to their decision making to say,
Absolutely.
I'm not going to give in now because I'm sacrificing my long-term future
That's right.
for short term. So that's the primary strategy. I like to fight fear with facts.
There you go. And I love the way you say that. Like, here's the math behind the yes. Here's the math behind the no. You still get to choose. But when you look at, listen, I'm going to walk away from the equity of the house because I don't want to deal with him anymore. I'm going to walk away from, spousal support because I just can't deal with him. And then you say, okay, but here's the math. And not just like it's, when break it down, and it's not just $1,000 a month. It's $1,000 a month times 30 years plus interest in a retirement account, right? If you can walk away from that money, that means that you don't have to put it in your bank account. How about we put it in a retirement savings account? That's the math.
That's the math. That's the math. Understand the impact of your decisions. And everyone's situation is different. So the numbers will vary, as they say.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's relative. So if I'm walking away from potentially $15,000 or $150,000 or add another comma, it's relative.
That's right.
You just have to figure out, like, okay, is the yes worth it?
I would say the yes would so rarely be worth, not having a retirement or that long term.
Well, especially in today's world. The future is uncertain. So,
which leads us into our next topic of conversation. We are entering into a complete unknown in many respects in terms of the global economy, but certainly our country's economy. And $15 eggs are one thing. I can live without eggs, but the long-term implications of these tariffs and the what it'll do to the economy, to our economy, and therefore the global economy is really scary. And it's a scary time to be getting a divorce when you literally have no idea how this is going to impact, let's say you're a small business owner like you and I, right? It's like, oh, shit. Are my clients maybe are not going to have any money to hire us? Like, what do we do? People who are getting divorced, there's so much uncertainty. You said to me before we hit record that your clients have actually not been talking about this, but we should be talking about this. We should be thinking about this. How are you thinking about this?
Not hiding from the reality of the possibility of the reality. Let's put it like that, because we don't know exactly where things are going. And I think that I saw something online, and it wasn't my idea, so I don't want to take credit, but I thought it was a brilliant idea. And I saw it last night, and someone said, you should go to the SSA site, Social Security Administration site, and you should download your benefits statement and the reports that show exactly what you're supposed to get, what you're entitled to based on all the years of work that you've accomplished. And so these are conversations or things that maybe we've never had to consider or talk about before. We've always had this lingering idea that Social Security won't be around in X years or whatever. And maybe there's some truth to that, and maybe there isn't. There are always conflicting articles on this position. But I think the times that we are in now, and some of the intentions that the leaders of this country have, force us to think about things differently than we have in the past. So just because you've never gone to the Social Security site and decided to pull down a statement doesn't mean you shouldn't do it tomorrow.
That's right.
And if there's nothing that happens, no harm, no foul. But in the event of, and this is what we talk about all the time with everything related to planning and being smart and being strategic, you're making decisions in the event of. So it might take you 10 or 15 minutes at most to do it, maybe longer if you've never set up the password. I don't know. It's a pretty simple task to just have something in your back pocket to protect yourself. In addition to that, I'm paying attention to the things that I am invested in. And so you can look at it from two angles. You can spend time looking at statistics and the articles and the facts that are out there about how the economy and personal economies do under one type of administration versus another type of administration, and where you see ebbs and flows in your 401k and where you see ebbs and flows in your Roth IRA. If you are closer to retirement and you don't have a long runway, then you probably need to be paying more attention to where your risk is versus someone who still has another 20 years and multiple administrations to get through. As an example, I'm just saying.
Divorce is hard. No question about it. The uncertainty, the isolation, it can feel like you're drowning. But you don't have to go through this alone. There's a place where you can gather with other women going through divorce and get expert advice from professionals like me. Phoenix Rising, a divorce empowerment collective. Phoenix Rising is an ongoing group coaching program designed to walk you through some of the hardest parts of your divorce in community with other women who are going through it too. In Phoenix Rising, you get 3 live coaching sessions with me every month, plus a guest expert call with a top industry professional every month. You'll learn exactly what to do, when and how, but more importantly, you'll have a community of women who truly understand. Because when women come together and share their stories, something powerful happens. We rise, we gain strength, we reclaim our voices, and we move forward, not just surviving, but thriving. Inside Phoenix Rising, you'll get expert guidance, a safe and supportive space, and the kind of sisterhood that changes everything. Enrollment is always open, so join us at kateanthony.com/decided today. That's kateanthony.com/decided, and we will welcome you with open arms. So let me ask you this. Would you pull it out now?
And this is a Nikki thing, right? This is not.
No. This is right. Exactly. This
yes. We're not telling you what to do.
That's
but
right.
We are
That's
saying,
right. Legal disclaimer.
Yeah, exactly. I personally wouldn't pull it out, but
no,
not
not you, but like my 83-year-old mother.
Yes. Okay. This is a great example because there are people in my family who were, we'll say victims, quote unquote, of things like the tech bubble, as an example.
Yes.
And having significant balances in retirement accounts, but the timing of their retirement and the tech bubble wasn't favorable for them. If they had have diversified their holdings and reallocated things, rebalanced their account. So not necessarily withdrawing everything. And that's an individual situation. So a financial advisor can help with that. But maybe the important first step is to say, I have too much risk in equities, as an example, or I have too much risk in crypto. Some people, again, may be heavily invested there, or in foreign assets and instruments or whatever that might look like in your portfolio. That is the homework and analysis that needs to be done. The average individual, unless you're really, really savvy or you're with a company. So when I say a company, it could be your financial advisor, it could be your plan administrator, whomever it is that can provide the level of detail that you need to make the decision. Just make sure that you have the ability to do that. So if you can't do it on your own, I feel very comfortable looking at my stuff and saying, okay, I know what to do. But again, average person doesn't. So if you don't have enough information or expertise where you feel comfortable, then rely on experts and rely on tools and resources that may be built into some of the financial tools that you have available to you to make that decision. My whole point is, even if you do nothing, even if you say my portfolio is well balanced, I don't think I'm subject to significant risk. There's always some risk. Then at least you've taken the time to make an assessment and a decision, and you should be looking at it more often. So when the economy is stable, then maybe you're only looking at your accounts and information a couple times a year. But when we're moving into uncharted, potentially very unstable territory, which I would say we are now, then you need to look at things more often. Or does that answer your question?
Sure. You know, I don't know. I don't even know what the questions are, right? By the way, not financially savvy over here. I'm like, I don't know. You tell me what to do, Nikki. I don't know what to do. Yes. Can we talk about crypto for a second since you brought it up? Because I do, I have a lot of clients whose, crypto is part of their divorce, right? How do you deal with that? This totally sidebar, by the way, but you brought it up, and I'm like, yeah. These people, there's a lot to deal with in terms of the crypto. Stuff.
It is. I actually tap on 2 groups of people, or one group of people, and a person in particular. So one, I tap on fellow other CDFAs because most of them have dealt with crypto where I've been, again, lucky enough where I haven't actually had to deal with it. Not
Okay.
significant accounts. Most of the people that have had accounts that I've worked with, they've had a few $100s, few
Yeah. Yeah.
$1,000s. We're not
Yeah.
talking 6 or 7 figures wrapped
Sure.
up in it. So it's inconsequential to the overall settlement.
Right.
However, my brother works for a really large crypto firm.
Wow.
And so I
Okay.
do have a bit of inside track there where some of the basic understandings of how it works, I can call on him and ask. So
Mm.
that's what I have to do. It's like, well, let me talk to my brother or let me talk to fellow colleagues in the industry to get insights. But what I can tell you based on those conversations is that one, it is not simple. Two, it can be extremely volatile. And there really are only a couple of big cryptocurrencies that are worth fighting for and over. And the reason I
Bitcoin.
say, yeah, exactly. Exactly. So
You
just
fight for that
because,
Bitcoin.
yeah, just because
Hmm.
your spouse has a cryptocurrency account,
Yeah,
all cryptocurrency is not created equal. And
that's
that's
right.
the main thing I think that's important for listeners to understand.
I have a little bit, and I will say that in the last week, I mean, and a little bit, I mean like a couple $100s, just because I was like, I
Right.
don't know. Let's see
Let's
what,
stick my
just
toe
for
in the water.
fun. Right. Oh my God, it has tanked in the last like 2 weeks, the last week in particular. I mean, tank. I was like a week and a half ago or something. I looked at it and I was like, okay, okay. So I made like, I maybe almost doubled my money. That's cool.
Hmm.
Cut to, right? And what's really interesting is that because I've never done this before or like invested in this way, that then I was like, well, it's tanked. So the, so I should buy, right? It's low, so I should buy. But then it's like, yeah, but it's low. Why would I buy? Right. And I was like, suddenly I was like, oh, I see. This is the gambling. This is where the gambling
Hmm.
addicts really get in there, right? Like, because it is a gamble. It's like, well, if it's low, why is it low? It, right? You want to buy low, but I don't know. Do I want to buy something that's so low? It's a lot.
Especially with something that doesn't have a lot of statistical, like historical data to help you figure out trends and
Right.
things like that. So I think that's the difference
That
between
is
your
the
traditional
difference.
investment opportunities in crypto, good, bad, or indifferent, unless you are spending a lot of time to really learn and understand,
Mhm.
then at least you have historical data to rely on, and you just don't have that with
Right.
crypto.
Because the stock market, we have 100 years of essentially a rise. There are
Exactly.
dips, but like it has always gone up. With crypto, we just don't have that level of history.
Right.
We don't have the data. So, all right. So aside from like investments and retirement and things like that, in this looking forward into this unknown of what's going to happen with our economy, although there are some knowns, right? I mean, these tariffs are pretty insane. How are you advising people, or is there anything that you're doing yourself differently
It
in
really
this
is looking
time?
for opportunities to maximize saving and investments where it makes sense, like diversifying your income. So when we look
Mhm.
at all the things that are happening with job eliminations, changes in industries, those things are really scary and have a very detrimental impact to a household and
Mhm.
potentially overnight. And so we know that there are some things that we can't control on a day-to-day basis. But what we can control is maximizing opportunities to save money and maximizing opportunities to earn more money. So
Mhm.
I'm sure you've heard the phrase, like, you can't save your way to being wealthy. You have the millionaires next door. I've read the book. I get it. Extremely frugal, and inflation is inflation. And like you said, the cost of eggs are the cost of eggs. And so maybe you can deal without $15 eggs, but you probably can't deal without heat and water and electricity, right?
Right.
You have to pay for those things. You do want to essentially enjoy life a little bit, so that might mean Netflix. That may not be a cruise to the Mediterranean, but it could just be Netflix. So
Right.
I say that with from a very reasonable perspective, and that I
Yes.
think that people are starting to, well, have been feeling the pinch and now are starting to be mindful of what they can do to earn more income or to save more money. But those are the two main focuses that I think applies for anyone. Because even if you are a six or seven figure earner, or if you have a strong portfolio, well, if your net worth is tied to investment accounts like we talked about, or your retirement account, or even your home, like the value of those
Ooh.
things, these traditional assets that we're used to relying on to build our nest egg and to have comfort and in what we've earned, essentially, it's, I won't say it's at risk because that seems extreme, but there's a higher level of risk associated with the value of those things when we're in a market like this. And you just need to be mindful of that. I think the other thing that people need to do is start tapping into professional resources and conversations. And
Mm.
so there's something to be said for the DIY approach. I'm down with it, no problem. But there's a reason that experts have professional expertise and certification and experience. And if you've never talked to someone before, it might be a good time now to just have a conversation to say, these are the things I'm concerned about. Do I legitimately have risk in these areas or do I not? If you have
Mhm.
all of your money in the bank and you don't invest into the market, maybe that's been okay in the past. But again, if we're talking about possibilities, what if the dollar isn't as strong as we're so used to it being because of the state of the economy? That means your buying power becomes diminished. And so that has pretty severe downstream implications to everything in your life, present day and in the future. Again, we're seeing it with the price of eggs. So in the past, it's like, oh, I'll go get a dozen of eggs and not think twice about it. Now you're like, do I really need eggs? Can I
Much
afford
do I
eggs?
like? Much do I
Yeah, how
like
much do I
eggs?
like eggs? So I think those decisions or that lens that maybe we have not been forced to look at in the past or in the recent past, we really need to look at today.
Mm. And so how do you like this, the convergence of all of these things and divorce? Like that's a like fuck, that's a big crossroads, right? It's like the intersection of this crazy economy and market and then oh, and also I'm getting divorced and my income may be cut in half and my expenses will remain, or however you want to look at it, right? The expenses are going to double or so how should we be looking at it at this critical time?
Scenario analysis. And again, that's where the fact that's where the fact versus the fear comes in. And in finance in general, it's very common for businesses. Businesses do this all the time. So it's okay for individuals to do it as well. You have your best case and your worst case scenario, maybe the mid case or the most realistic case. And you run all these different scenario analysis to say, well, if I'm a business and I'm earning X income and it's going to cost me this much to make these goods or offer these services, then what's my bottom line? Most people understand or have an appreciation about that for businesses. Well, individuals and households can do the same thing. So when you're thinking about what the impact will be when you're going through a divorce, especially now, more important than ever, part of that work, part of that settlement, negotiation or review is thinking about, well, if I take this, what's the best case scenario here? What's the impact that it'll have on my financial life today? Because I think what sometimes not everyone loses sight of when they're going through a divorce is the long-term impact. And so if you're talking about potentially a situation, whether you're going through a divorce or not, where the money might be funny in the future and you don't really have a lot of control over it. On top of the things that you just mentioned, now you're going from a two income to a one income household, or now your expenses are increasing because of where you have to move or whatever the case may be. It's important to have someone to run scenario analysis. And so whether it's a CDFA, whether it's a financial advisor, whether you find an amazing spreadsheet on Google because you're really savvy with spreadsheets and you like to use tools. No, some people don't. I'm a
Not
spreadsheet
it. Not it.
girl.
I know you are. I know you
Yeah.
are. Yeah.
Whatever the tool is, that doesn't matter. but you have to have the work done. So either you're doing it or you're having someone to do it on your behalf because it arms you with information. No, you can't predict the future, but you can find ways to be prepared for different possibilities of the future. That, to me, that's one of the best things that you can do. And I think a time like this is placing more emphasis on the importance of scenario analysis, because I always just kind of come back to the numbers. So
Right. It's the math. It's the math.
yeah.
Numbers don't lie. For clarification, I think most of my audience knows this, but this is literally what a CDFA is for, to
Right,
run the
right.
numbers, to figure out how you're going to live in your post-divorce life and what you need, right? And to create those best and worst case scenarios. So a CDFA is going to be your top priority, I think, if you're going through a divorce right now. People often say, like, oh, I don't want to spend I've got more money and more professionals and blah, blah, blah. This is an investment with a probably pretty reliable return.
I think so. Sometimes we're so used to the internet and being able to get an answer to something for free in a few seconds. But sometimes you have to pay for advice and guidance and expertise. That's okay.
Well, it's more than okay, right? I mean, when you're talking about money, like, yes, pay for it. You kind of often get what you pay for, right? Pay for a professional like Nikki.
And if Nikki can't give you the answer, I'll be very honest with you and say, hey, that's outside of my expertise, or I haven't dealt with the situation before. Let me make sure I put you in the right hands, because again, it's very important for me to make sure that my clients get the help that they need, but also that there's a level of assurance or reassurance when you're going through this process, because you do feel so overwhelmed and insecure about your future and what's going to happen. So it's an investment, like you said.
Yeah. And knowledge is power, right? And sometimes, like, just even if the numbers are terrible and shitty and scary, whatever, at least you know, right?
Yes.
Because it's the whistling past the graveyard, the not knowing, the pretending it's not happening that will get us into way more trouble than anything else.
Oh, I say all the time, even when I'm presenting in workshops, I'll have a slide to say, ignorance is not always bliss. Sometimes it's expensive. And so not knowing something or not understanding the impact of your decision can literally cost you thousands of dollars.
Thousands of dollars. Yes. And a lot of credit card debt and all of that really just terrible, expensive stuff. Don't ask me how I know. Nikki, thank you so much for this awesome conversation. Where can everyone find you? Which, please, guys, go find Nikki. But where can everyone find you?
Well, thanks for having me. It's a good talk, as always. And the easiest place to find me is on our website, so thefirmapproach.com. We have a blog with lots of information, as well as ways for us to work together. And then also on YouTube, I've had a YouTube page since 2014 and have never done anything with it.
Good
so
for
a shout out to my son, who's Gen Z and loves YouTube.
Same girl, same.
And has helped get that off and running. So you can also find us on YouTube. And Firm has 2 eyes. So the Firm with 2 eyes approach.
Yes, that's awesome. And then you're on the socials at the Firm Approach as well?
Yes, Facebook, great. Instagram. He's trying to do TikTok. We'll see about that. Yeah, we'll see. But yes, I'm on the important socials.
There you go. Nikki, thank you so much. It's been awesome to talk to you as always.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Divorce Survival Guide podcast. If you like what you hear, head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in and leave me a review. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at the Divorce Survival Guide. I'll see you next time. And until then, remember, you, my love, deserve to be happy.